let's talk about what it really means to pull back your energy, because most people misunderstand this completely. Pulling back your energy is not about playing games. It's not about trying to punish him. It's not about posting things to make him jealous or pretending you don't care when you actually do. Pulling back your energy is about regaining emotional control. It's about stepping out of overgiving mode and stepping back into self-respect. When you overinvest in someone who is underinvesting in you, you create imbalance, and imbalance kills attraction. If you are always the one texting first, always the one checking in, always the one making plans, always the one fixing arguments, you slowly train him to expect that effort from you without requiring any from himself. Human nature works like this. We value what we work for. If he doesn't have to work for your attention, he won't treasure it. Pulling back your energy starts internally before it ever shows externally. It begins with awareness. You have to ask yourself honestly, am I giving more than I'm receiving? Not just materially, but emotionally. Are you the one carrying the conversations? Are you the one making excuses for his behavior? Are you the one tolerating inconsistency because you're afraid to lose him? If the answer is yes, then you're not in balance. And attraction thrives in balance. When you pull back, you stop over-explaining yourself. You stop double texting. You stop rearranging your schedule at the last minute just because he finally decided he's free. You stop responding instantly every single time. Not to be manipulative, but because you genuinely have other priorities. Your time becomes valuable because you treat it as valuable. There's something powerful that happens when your energy shifts. Men feel changes in energy more than they listen to words. You don't have to announce, I'm pulling back. You don't have to give a speech. Your behavior speaks for you. When you become slightly less available, slightly less predictable, slightly less eager, he feels the difference immediately. And when he feels that difference, he starts paying attention. Here's what most people get wrong. They think pulling back means becoming cold. That's not it. Cold pushes people away. Calm creates curiosity. You're not shutting down your warmth. You're just no longer pouring it endlessly into someone who hasn't earned it. You're warm when he shows effort. You're receptive when he steps up, but you're not chasing. When you are always initiating contact, he relaxes into a passive role. But when you step back, you create space for him to lean forward. And if he doesn't lean forward, that tells you everything you need to know. Pulling back reveals the truth. It shows you whether he was interested in you or just interested in the convenience you provided. Pulling back your energy also means emotionally detaching from the outcome. That's the hardest part, because most people don't overgive. Out of generosity, they overgive out of fear. Fear of abandonment, fear of being replaced, fear of not being chosen. But here's the truth. When you operate from fear, you shrink yourself. And when you shrink yourself, you lower your value in your own eyes. When you pull back, you shift from how do I keep him to does he deserve access to me? That one mental shift changes everything. It changes how you respond. It changes how you tolerate behavior. It changes how quickly you forgive inconsistency. Energy is attention. Attention is power. Where your focus goes, your emotional investment grows. If you're constantly thinking about him, checking your phone, analyzing his messages, you're feeding the connection alone. When you redirect that energy towards your goals, your health, your friendships, your growth, you become fuller. And fullness is attractive. People are drawn to those who have a life they love. When your happiness does not depend on his consistency, you radiate independence. And independence is magnetic because it signals strength. It says, I want you, but I don't need you. And there's a massive difference between those two things. Pulling back your energy also teaches him accountability. If you always tolerate late replies, cancel plans, and minimal effort without consequence, you silently approve it. But when you respond to inconsistency with distance instead of arguments, you communicate standards without drama. You don't have to yell. You don't have to threaten. Your absence becomes the message. There's a psychological principle at play here. Scarcity increases value. When something is always available, it feels ordinary. When it becomes limited, it feels precious. That doesn't mean you become unavailable. It means access to you requires effort. Attention requires consistency. Time requires intention. And here's the deeper truth. Pulling back your energy protects your heart. Overgiving creates resentment. You start feeling unappreciated. You start feeling unseen. And eventually you explode or collapse. But when you regulate your investment early, you avoid that emotional burnout. You maintain dignity. The most attractive position you can be in is one of calm confidence. You're not anxious. You're not chasing. You're not proving. You're observing. You're allowing him to show you who he is. And if he rises to meet your energy, beautiful. If he doesn't, you haven't drained yourself trying to force something. Because the moment you start sacrificing your peace for someone's potential, you've already given too much. When you stand firm in your standards and redirect your emotional focus inward, you naturally create space. And in that space, he either feels your absence and steps up, or he fades away. When your energy is balanced, controlled, and rooted in self-respect, you become unforgettable. Not because you chased him into loving you, but because you valued yourself enough to never overextend. And that restraint, that quiet, confidence, that disciplined emotional control, that's what leaves him thinking about you long after the conversation ends. Creating space for curiosity is one of the most powerful things you can ever do in a relationship dynamic, because curiosity fuels emotional attachment. When everything is predictable, when every thought is shared immediately, when every plan is announced in advance, when every emotion is explained in detail, there's nothing left to discover. And when there's nothing left to discover, the mind stops engaging deeply. The truth is, people are drawn toward what they are still trying to understand. Curiosity begins where certainty ends. If he knows exactly what you're doing every minute of the day, exactly how you feel at all times, exactly how you respond to every situation, there's no mental stimulation. You become comfortable. And comfort without effort slowly turns into complacency. But when you allow parts of your life to remain yours, you can find peace and contentment. When you don't overshare, when you don't narrate your every move, you create space for his imagination to activate. Imagination is powerful. When he doesn't hear from you for a while because you're genuinely busy, his mind starts filling in the blanks. When you don't instantly explain every mood shift, he starts wondering what you're thinking. When you're not constantly available to entertain him, he starts questioning what has your attention. That questioning is not insecurity, it's engagement. It means he's thinking about you even when you're not there. Creating space does not mean ignoring someone. It means allowing pauses. It means understanding that silence can build tension in a healthy way. When conversations don't drag on endlessly, when there's room to miss each other between interactions, anticipation grows. Anticipation is the spark that keeps attraction alive. Without anticipation, everything feels routine. There's something psychologically compelling about not having complete access to someone. When access is unlimited, effort decreases. When access requires intention, effort increases. If you answer every call immediately, reply to every message within seconds, and always rearrange your schedule to accommodate him, you remove the opportunity for him to pursue. Pursuit is tied to desire. When someone has to move towards you, invest energy, and initiate connection, their emotional involvement strengthens. Curiosity also grows when you maintain independence. If your entire world revolves around him, there's nothing intriguing left to explore. But when you have hobbies, goals, social circles, passions, and ambitions that exist outside the relationship, you become layered. Layers are fascinating. A woman with her own rhythm, her own plans, her own drive naturally sparks interest because she cannot be fully predicted or fully controlled. Predictability may feel safe, but it rarely feels exciting. When he can anticipate every reaction, every response, every plan, there's no challenge. And challenge, when healthy, stimulates growth and attraction. Creating space allows him to step into that challenge. It invites him to figure you out, to lean forward, to ask questions instead of assuming answers. Another powerful part of creating space is emotional restraint. Not every feeling needs to be expressed instantly. Not every insecurity needs to be voiced in the moment it appears. When you process your emotions internally first, you respond with clarity instead of impulse. That composure adds depth to your presence. It makes your words carry weight because you're not speaking out of anxiety. You're speaking out of awareness. When he senses that you are emotionally grounded, that you're not reacting dramatically to every small shift, he respects you more. And respect strengthens attraction. Curiosity thrives when someone cannot fully predict your emotional reactions. If he knows that every delayed text will cause panic or confrontation, he relaxes into that pattern. But if you remain calm and centered, he begins to wonder what you're thinking instead of assuming it. Creating space also means not over-validating him constantly. Compliments are beautiful, appreciation is necessary, but over-validation can reduce mystery. When someone is constantly reassured of your feelings, they stop questioning them. When they occasionally have to wonder where they stand, they value clarity more when they receive it. That subtle uncertainty keeps them engaged. Space allows reflection. When you're not constantly in communication, he has time to replay conversations in his mind. He remembers your laugh. He thinks about the way you responded to something. He reconsiders moments. That mental replay builds attachment. Constant contact leaves no room for reflection because everything is happening in real time with no pause. There's also strength in being slightly unavailable. Not unavailable in a manipulative sense, but unavailable because your life is full. When you say, I can't tonight, I have plans, and you genuinely do, you communicate that your time is valuable. Value creates intrigue. If your schedule is always empty and waiting, there's no urgency. But when your presence must be earned and planned for, it becomes meaningful. Curiosity deepens when someone realizes they don't fully own your attention. If he senses that your happiness continues with or without him, he leans in more. Not because he wants control, but because humans naturally invest more where there is something to potentially lose. When you create healthy distance, you remind him that you are a choice, not a guarantee. Space also prevents emotional suffocation. Too much closeness too quickly can overwhelm attraction. Relationships need rhythm, togetherness and separation, conversation and silence, intensity and calm. Without rhythm, everything becomes flat. Creating space restores that rhythm. It allows longing to build between interactions. When you master the art of space, you don't chase reassurance. You don't demand constant updates. You trust the flow, and that trust is attractive because it signals security within yourself. Secure energy invites pursuit. Anxious energy repels it. The key is authenticity. Space must come from a genuine place of self-focus, not from strategy alone. If you're creating distance while secretly obsessing over his response, the energy feels forced. But when you're truly engaged in your own life, truly fulfilled outside of him, the space feels natural. And natural space creates genuine curiosity. When he starts asking what you've been up to, when he initiates plans more often, when he seems slightly more attentive, it's because he feels that subtle shift. He senses that you are not constantly orbiting him. You are centered in your own world. And now he has to step into that world intentionally. Curiosity is not built through control. It's built through balance. It's the art of giving enough warmth to connect, but enough space to wonder. It's allowing him to experience your absence just enough to appreciate your presence. And when that balance is mastered, he doesn't just talk to you out of habit. He reaches for you out of desire. Focusing on self-growth is the move that changes everything. Because when you evolve, the entire dynamic shifts without you having to force it. Most people think attraction is something you create by doing more for someone else. In reality, attraction deepens when you become more within yourself. When your energy is centered on growth, confidence becomes natural, and confidence is magnetic in a way that cannot be faked. Self-growth begins with understanding that your identity cannot revolve around someone else's attention. If your mood rises and falls based on his messages, if your confidence depends on his compliments, if your peace depends on his consistency, then you've given away control. Growth means taking that control back. It means building a life so full that a relationship becomes an addition, not the foundation. When you start investing in your physical health, your mindset changes. When you work out consistently, eat better, sleep better, and take care of your body, you carry yourself differently. Your posture shifts. Your eye contact strengthens. Your voice steadies. You don't need to announce transformation to show. And when he sees that you're leveling up physically, not to impress him, but to feel strong, he notices the shift in you. Mental growth is even more powerful. Reading more, learning new skills, developing emotional intelligence, understanding your triggers, healing old wounds. These changes alter how you respond in relationships. You stop reacting impulsively. You stop arguing for validation. You stop tolerating behavior that contradicts your strengths. Emotional maturity is deeply attractive because it brings stability. And stability creates safety, which strengthens connection. When you focus on your goals, ambition becomes visible. Whether it's career advancement, starting a business, developing a creative talent, or improving financially, purpose radiates. A person with direction carries a different energy than someone waiting to be chosen. When your days are structured around progress, you're less likely to overanalyze texts or obsess over minor inconsistencies. You simply don't have time for that. Productivity reduces insecurity. There's something compelling about someone who is in motion. Stagnation feels heavy. Growth feels alive. When he sees you pursuing something meaningful, you become inspiring. Inspiration builds admiration, and admiration deepens attraction. If he feels like you're rising while standing next to him, he either rises too or feels the distance growing. Either outcome benefits you. Self-growth also strengthens boundaries. When you know your value because you've invested in yourself, you don't negotiate it. You don't chase clarity from someone who is inconsistent. You don't beg for time from someone who isn't prioritizing you. Growth teaches you that attention is earned, not demanded. And that quiet standard shifts the power dynamic naturally. Confidence that comes from growth is different from loud confidence. It's not about arrogance or proving superiority. It's calm. It's steady. It doesn't need constant validation. When you walk into a room and feel secure in who you are, people sense it. He senses it. You're no longer seeking approval. You're offering presence. That shift alone can make someone miss you because they realize your energy isn't easily replaced. Another part of self-growth is expanding your world socially. When you nurture friendships, attend events, explore new environments, and surround yourself with supportive people, your emotional dependence decreases. You're no longer relying on one person to meet all your needs. That balance makes you lighter in relationships. You engage because you want to, not because you need to. And desire is far more attractive than dependency. Growth also involves healing from past emotional wounds. If you've experienced betrayal, abandonment, or disappointment before, those fears can silently influence your behavior. You might cling tighter. You might overgive. You might panic at small signs of distance. But when you consciously work through those patterns, you respond differently. Instead of reacting from fear, you act from clarity. That emotional stability is rare, and rarity increases value. As you grow, your conversations become deeper. You bring new ideas, new perspectives, new experiences to share. You're not repeating the same patterns or rehashing the same insecurities. You evolve, and that evolution keeps the connection dynamic. When someone feels like they are discovering new layers of you over time, interest stays alive. There's also a psychological effect that happens when you improve yourself visibly. When he sees progress, whether it's physical, transformation, career success, or emotional strength, he feels the shift in status. Humans are naturally drawn toward growth because growth signals potential. If he senses that you're becoming stronger, more independent, more fulfilled, he subconsciously recognizes that your standards are rising too. That awareness can create urgency. Self-growth changes how you handle silence. Instead of fear and distance, you use it. Instead of filling every gap with conversation, you fill it with productivity. Instead of asking why he hasn't reached out, you're busy building something meaningful. That difference in behavior shifts the entire emotional tone of the relationship. When you prioritize yourself consistently, you also develop self-trust. You trust that you'll be okay whether he stays or leaves. That internal security removes desperation from your energy. And desperation is the quickest way to reduce attraction. Security, on the other hand, enhances it. Focusing on self-growth means you're not trying to win someone over. You're trying to win in life. And ironically, that mindset often draws people closer. Because when you're fulfilled, you're not draining. When you're confident, you're not controlling. When you're evolving, you're not stagnant. The most powerful part is that growth is visible over time. He may not notice smile changes immediately, but consistency compounds. Weeks turn into months. And suddenly you're operating at a higher level. You speak differently. You move differently. You expect differently. And when someone sees that transformation, they feel either inspired to match it or anxious about losing access to it. When you commit to growth, you become less predictable in the best way. Not emotionally unstable, but dynamically evolving. There's always another level to you, another goal you're chasing, another skill you're refining. That ongoing expansion keeps curiosity alive because you're never standing still. And here's the truth. When you grow for yourself, you detach from the outcome. If he appreciates the upgraded version of you, great. If he doesn't, you've already stepped into a higher standard that will attract someone who does. Growth ensures that you never shrink to fit someone's comfort zone. The more you invest in becoming the best version of yourself physically, mentally, emotionally, financially, the less you worry about being missed. Because you know your value doesn't decrease based on someone's attention. And when that realization becomes real, your presence carries weight. That weight is what lingers in someone's mind. Not because you demanded it, not because you chased it, but because you built yourself into someone unforgettable through consistent self-growth. Operating from self-worth changes the entire way you move in relationships because self-worth is the foundation of every decision you make. If you don't deeply believe you are valuable, you will constantly try to prove it. You will overgive, over-explain, over-forgive, and overstay. But when your actions are rooted in self-worth, you don't need to convince anyone of your value. You simply embody it. Self-worth is not arrogance. It's not loud confidence. It's not walking around believing you're better than someone else. It's a quiet internal understanding that you are enough as you are. And when that understanding becomes solid, your standards rise naturally. You don't have to force them. You don't have to announce them. They show up in what you tolerate and what you walk away from. When you operate from insecurity, you fear losing someone more than you fear losing yourself. That's where the imbalance begins. You ignore red flags because you don't want to start over. You accept crumbs because you're afraid there won't be more. You silence your needs because you don't want to seem demanding. But when you operate from self-worth, the fear shifts. You fear abandoning your own standards more than you fear someone leaving. Self-worth teaches you that love should feel mutual. Effort should be reciprocated. Respect should be consistent. If someone is inconsistent with their time, their communication, or their commitment, you don't chase clarity from them. You observe, you evaluate, and if necessary, you distance yourself. Not out of anger, but out of alignment. There's power in restraint. When you know your value, you don't argue to be understood by someone who isn't listening. You don't beg someone to stay. You don't compete with other options. You don't try to outperform another person just to keep attention. You recognize that if someone needs convincing to see your worth, they are not aligned with you. Operating from self-worth also changes how you respond to silence. If he pulls back slightly, you don't panic. You don't spiral into worst-case scenarios. You don't flood his phone with messages seeking reassurance. You remain grounded. You continue living your life because your confidence doesn't hinge on constant validation. That calm response alone communicates strength. When someone senses that you are not easily shaken, they treat you differently. When they realize that your presence is a privilege, not an entitlement, they approach you with more care. Self-worth creates a subtle boundary around you. It signals that access to you requires consistency, respect, and effort. Many people confuse attachment with love. They cling tightly because they are afraid of being alone. But self-worth removes that fear. You understand that being alone is better than being undervalued. You understand that peace is more important than temporary attention. That mindset shifts your entire energy. You stop chasing moments and start protecting your future. Operating from self-worth also means you speak up calmly when something doesn't sit right with you. You don't suppress your needs to keep harmony. You express them clearly, without aggression, without desperation. And if they're dismissed repeatedly, you don't keep repeating yourself. You adjust your presence instead. There is something deeply attractive about someone who knows when to walk away. Not dramatically, not with threats, but with quiet certainty. The willingness to leave when standards are not met signals confidence at the highest level. It says, I value myself enough to choose alignment over attachment. That kind of energy leaves a lasting impression. Self-worth also protects you from over-romanticizing potential. You stop falling in love with who someone could be and start evaluating who they consistently show themselves to be. You don't invest months or years trying to fix or reshape someone. You recognize that real connection doesn't require constant persuasion. When you truly believe you are valuable, you don't feel the need to compete. You don't compare yourself to other women. You don't stalk social media looking for threats. You trust that what is meant for you will recognize you without you having to shrink or exaggerate yourself. Operating from self-worth affects your body language, your tone, your timing. You don't rush responses out of anxiety. You don't overshare to secure closeness. You don't reveal every vulnerability too quickly just to fast-track intimacy. You allow connection to build gradually. You let trust be earned. There's also emotional discipline and self-worth. Just because you feel something intensely doesn't mean you react instantly. You pause, you assess, you choose your response. Instead of being controlled by impulse, that composure builds respect, and respect strengthens attraction far more than emotional chaos ever will. Self-worth also means you don't accept bare minimum behavior as effort. A late-night text isn't consistency. Occasional attention isn't commitment. Words without action don't move you. When your standards are firm, you filter out low investment naturally. And that filtering process increases your overall value because you're not available to everyone. When a man realizes that your attention cannot be easily regained once lost, he treats it differently. If he understands that disrespect leads to distance, not arguments, he becomes more mindful. Self-worth creates consequences without confrontation. Your withdrawal becomes the message. It's important to understand that operating from self-worth isn't about making someone miss you through tactics. It's about becoming someone who cannot be easily replaced because you refuse to lower yourself. When your standards are consistent, your energy stable, and your boundaries clear, your presence becomes impactful. You don't beg to be prioritized. You expect it. And if it's not given, you redirect your energy. That redirection is powerful because it shows that you are not dependent on a single outcome for your happiness. When you hold yourself in high regard, you naturally attract people who are willing to rise to meet that standard. And those who aren't willing will fall away. Self-worth filters your environment without force. The most magnetic quality you can possess is self-respect. Because self-respect influences every other trait: your confidence, your patience, your boundaries, your tone, your decisions. It keeps you from overextending. It keeps you from tolerating inconsistency. It keeps you aligned with what you deserve. And when someone experiences a woman who operates from that place, they feel it. They feel the difference between someone who needs them and someone who chooses them. They feel the strength behind your calmness. They feel the discipline behind your silence. They feel the standard behind your smile. That feeling lingers. Because people may forget words, but they never forget how you made them feel about your own value. When you consistently demonstrate that you respect yourself, you teach others how to treat you. And if they fail to meet that standard, your willingness to walk away becomes the very thing that leaves a lasting mark on their mind.